Daniel Ricciardo, the king of the late breakers, the honey badger himself. It's been a tricky start to life at McLaren. The Aussie driver currently sits in 8th place in the standings, a whopping 63 points behind teammate Lando Norris. But despite a non-ideal start to life in Papaya, just how bad have things been? Well, I asked you guys that exact question a couple of days ago over on the community page, so if you're not already subscribed, what an awesome reason to do so. I asked you, how would you rate Danny Ric's season so far? And as you can very clearly see, a mixed response from over 4,000 of you that voted in the poll, but the majority, a whopping 64% of you, going with not great. Not ideal for Daniel Ricciardo. 18% went with solid and just 5% went with either good or fantastic. So, easy reading, it's not been the greatest of starts to life at McLaren for Daniel Ricciardo. But I think there's more to this story than meets the eye. And so in today's video, we'll be exploring how have things really been going for Daniel Ricciardo, just how good is Lando Norris this season, and what does the rest of the season hold for Danny Ric and McLaren. As always, if you are new, feel free to subscribe to keep up to date with all of the goings on in the world of Formula 1. But without further ado, let's have a little discussion about Daniel Ricciardo's season so far. First things first, let's start things off with the numbers, the hard-hitting facts of the season so far. And with 10 races completed in our 2021 calendar, this is what Danny Ric's qualifying is looking like. And it's not great, is it? The McLaren, on average this year, has been either the 3rd or 4th quickest car when Ferrari out of the blue have decided to steal 2 pole positions, but most of the time they've been the 3rd or 4th quickest car. For Ricciardo, only making it into the top 10 on 5 occasions so far this year, and going out in Q1 at round 3 in Portugal, I think room for improvement on a Saturday. But how about on Sunday? We know Danny Ric is so good at overtaking, comes alive when it comes to racecraft, and actually, he's been pretty good on a Sunday. Look at this really surprised me when I was doing my research for this video. Only twice has Ricciardo not been in the points so far this year. First up, 12th place at the Monaco Grand Prix, notoriously difficult to overtake, and a few races ago in Austria for the Styrian Grand Prix, a bit of a crazy weekend, and was also unable to score points. But notice something about those quali results and race results. Almost every single race this year, he's gone forwards in the Grand Prix. The only outlier to that was race 1 all the way back in Bahrain for his first race at McLaren. But now we've gone through the results. Quali needs a bit of improvement, but the racing looks good. Let's address the elephant in the room. This man, of course, this man, Lando Norris, has been on fire this year, arguably the best racer of 2021. And when you look at the statistics, the head-to-head comparison between Norris and Ricciardo, it's been night and day. In qualifying, Ricciardo has only been able to beat Norris on just 3 occasions this year. And actually, in the races, it gets even worse. Ricciardo has been unable to beat Norris in race conditions so far this year. 10-0 in favour of Lando Norris. When you then factor in 3 podiums for Lando this year, 1 at Imola, 1 at Monaco, and 1 a couple of weekends ago in Austria. Comparing that to Daniel's best results this season, a 5th place at Silverstone, his only top 5 finish of the year, you can start to see why some people are a little bit disappointed, are surprised, and why some people think Danny Ric's seat could be under threat at the end of the season. His history. We all know how good this man can be. 7 Grand Prix victories, one of them coming at Monaco, of all places, 2 pole positions around the Principality to add to that. Ricciardo has become infamous for one of the most consistent drivers on the grid. Just last season, a year plagued with question marks and doubts about which races we'd even be heading to, Ricciardo had the season of his life. No victories, but 2 podiums in a tricky Renault car saw the Aussie finish in 5th place in front of Red Bull's Alex Albon, the 2 McLarens and the 2 Ferraris. And so when the announcement came in May last year that Ricciardo would be moving to McLaren to replace the Ferrari-bound Carlos Sainz, many, including myself, just assumed Ricciardo would jump into that car, instantly perform, and in a car that is better than last year's Renault, Ricciardo could really challenge not only Lando Norris, but also those top 2 teams in Mercedes and Red Bull. That's not quite come to fruition. But is it fair? A driver who's just moved to a new team after 2 years at Renault, the rest of his career being part of that Red Bull family, is it fair to compare him against Lando Norris, who's been with McLaren for his entirety of his Formula 1 career and was part of their junior programme as well? It's an almost impossible question to answer. Some drivers take to new cars, take to new teams like a duck to water, instantly gel with their new machinery, their new surroundings, and instantly you can see in their performances they are hungry, they are ready to prove themselves on a new team. Other drivers struggle under the pressure, don't get on with their new teammate, don't get on with their new car and driving style, ultimately struggle on track, and eventually things fall apart. I think it's too early, it's way too early to say that for Ricciardo, because it's very clear he gets on with the team, he gets on with Lando Norris, and as we've seen in his race results, despite the fact he doesn't quite get on with his new car just yet, he's still scoring points. He's finishing races, one of the only drivers to finish all 10 races this season, and more importantly, we are seeing glimpses of the Honey Badger we know and love. Last time out for the British Grand Prix, his first home race with McLaren, 7th in qualifying turned into 6th place in sprint quali, and come race day, his race pace was right on the money with Lando Norris, and though Lando was very close to another podium despite a mistake in the pit stops for McLaren, Ricciardo wasn't too far behind, finishing just 14 seconds behind teammate Norris. Sprinkle in a few extra moments of Ricciardo brilliance, 6th place in France, Imola, and also the Spanish Grand Prix. There certainly has been multiple moments that have proved that it's not all been doom and gloom like some people have been saying for Danny Ric this year. What I do want to take a quick look at though is Daniel Ricciardo's first 10 races, obviously at McLaren, but also at Renault 2 seasons ago in 2019. He made his debut with the team and well, it wasn't ideal. Crashing out before we even got to turn 1, moving onto the grass at the pit wall. Not the way Ricciardo and Renault wanted to start their relationship together. Also, the fact it was the Australian Grand Prix didn't help things that particular weekend. However, for the next 9 races, this is what Ricciardo's results looked like. A real mixed bag of results. A Renault car that was more often than not the 5th quickest car in the field that year, and as you can see, Ricciardo, despite 3 non-finishes in the first 4 races, he was able to score points on 4 occasions in his first 10 of the season. A 6th place coming at round 7, the best of the bunch. Alongside Ricciardo that year was Nico Hülkenberg, and what's interesting about this is Hülkenberg, just like Norris this season, had come off 2 really great seasons with Renault and 2 seasons in which his confidence and his ability in that car grew and grew. So going into Hulk's 3rd season, his first 10 races looks like this. Now, is it me, or is that just ridiculously similar to Danny Ric's? 2 DNFs in the first 4 races, very similar. That Renault car was not a reliable car whatsoever that season, but also just like Ricciardo, 4 points finishes in those first 10 races. And actually, in terms of head-to-head, it was Ricciardo who had the edge on points and race head-to-head over those first 10 of the season. So it's safe to say that at Renault, it was even Stevens. Ricciardo jumped into that car and instantly started performing on a very similar level to Hülkenberg, and eventually, come the end of the season, was the better of the 2. In 2021, the year we are fully focused on in today's video, things are different, and when we add Lando Norris's results to that equation, not only will you notice that this year's McLaren is miles better than the 2019 Renault, but what you will also spot is Lando Norris's results are far better than that of Daniel Ricciardo. With the Honey Badger reaching the top 5 just once this season, the complete opposite to Lando, who's only failed to reach the top 5 just once. But looking at those results, looking at those 3 brilliant podiums for Lando this season, is Ricciardo that bad? Or, just bear with me, is Lando Norris overachieving in that McLaren car? Well, I want to take a look at this because I think this is the real crux of the debate regarding Ricciardo. The 3rd quickest car on the grid, what you're expecting to see is 5th or 6th. Norris is 3rd in the drivers' standings, just in front of Bottas and Perez, but still, he is 3rd in the standings. His average qualifying result isn't quite as good and actually is worse than you would expect to see from that McLaren. Factor in those Ferrari pole positions we spoke about earlier, and occasionally AlphaTauri doing well. It's not the end of the world, but where Norris really comes alive is in the Grand Prix. 4.5 his average finishing position, moving roughly 2 places forward during a race. That's excellent return for investment from Lando Norris. For Ricciardo then, 5th and 6th again is your expected result for the 3rd quickest car. A championship standings of 8th isn't good enough for a driver of that calibre. An average quali result gets even worse, 10.3 on average, not making it into Q3, and I think this is where Ricciardo's season is falling apart, because in the races, just like his teammate, is moving forward 2 places. We spoke about earlier is scoring points, and though when you compare the 2 of them, Norris comfortably has the better in almost all aspects this season, if Ricciardo can sort out his qualifying, if he can get more comfortable on the brakes, taking a look at that Austria onboard hot lap between the 2 of them, the comparison between the 2 of them, already at turn 1 you can very clearly see Norris has braked much later, and on circuits like Monaco, like Austria, like Portimao, where Ricciardo has struggled, braking is the critical factor. And as we have seen throughout his career, the king of the late breakers, Daniel Ricciardo, if he can't get that working, he really struggles to get the full package together. We've seen glimpses this year of the Ricciardo we know and love. He's got lofty ambitions for himself and for McLaren to win races, to get another shoey up on the podium, fingers crossed we see that this season, and to even win the World Championship. His racing this year has almost been as good as ever, but qualifying has been the real issue. Fix that, and I truly believe we will see that shoey. We will see a podium this season. Thank you all very much for watching today's Racing Reviews feature video, the first of many on the channel, but as always I would love to know your feedback in the comments section down below. If you are new, feel free to subscribe. If you enjoyed, hit that like button to let me know you enjoy this new style of video, but as always, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.